My daughter demanded my dead husband's ring for her wedding. I pulled the $50K I was giving her. But when she came back crying and begging for help, I gave her one condition that left her speechless and changed everything forever. I'm 48 years old. I run a small bakery downtown. And what happened last year with my daughter Isabel almost destroyed me, honestly. I guess I should start by saying that I lost my husband Peter 4 years ago. It was a heart attack, completely unexpected. And since then, his wedding ring has been the only thing that makes me feel like he's still with me somehow. I know it sounds silly, but when I go through difficult moments, I touch the ring and it's like I can feel his hand holding mine. You know what I mean? It's not just a piece of metal. It's literally the 22 years we were together. Every good and bad moment, every laugh, and every tear. The thing is that Isabel, my 5-year-old daughter, got engaged to Gabriel like a year and a half ago. Gabriel is a good guy. He comes from a modest but hardworking family, and you can tell he loves my daughter with all his heart. I was happy for them, obviously, because after everything we went through with Peter's death, we needed something beautiful in our lives. They dated for 3 years before getting engaged, so it wasn't rushed or anything like that. The problem, and when I say problem, I mean problem, started when Isabel came to see me one afternoon at the bakery. It was a Tuesday. I remember perfectly because on Tuesdays we always make garlic bread, and the whole store smells amazing. Isabel arrived with that nervous smile she has when she wants to ask me something important. You know, that expression kids have when they know what they're going to ask is complicated. She sat at one of the small tables and started talking about the wedding, about the dress, about the flowers, and I was thinking, well, where is she going with this? Until she finally dropped it. She told me, Mom, I want to use Dad's ring at my wedding, as my something borrowed or as my secondary engagement ring. I don't know. But I want to have it that day because I feel like that way Dad will be there with me. I swear I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I sat there unable to speak for a few seconds because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This ring has never left my finger since Peter died. Literally not even to shower. I take it off, and now my daughter was asking me to give it to her. I told her, Isabel, honey, I understand how you feel, but this ring is very important to me. It's the only thing I have left of your dad in physical form. She started getting defensive and told me I was selfish, that it was just a ring, and that she also had a right to have something of her father on her special day. The conversation got tense and we ended up almost yelling at each other in the middle of the bakery, with customers watching and everything. What I didn't know at that moment, and what I found out later, is that my mother-in-law Judith was behind this whole idea. Judith is 72 years old and basically never accepted me as her son's wife. When Peter and I got married, she didn't come to the wedding. She said she was sick, but everyone knew it was a lie. During the 22 years I was married to Peter, Judith always found ways to make me feel inferior, to insinuate that I wasn't enough for her son, that I came from a working-class family, and that I had basically trapped Peter. After Peter died, I thought maybe things would get better. But no. If anything, they got worse because now I didn't have Peter to defend me. It turns out Judith had been putting ideas in Isabel's head for months. She would tell her things like, your mother is selfish and only thinks about herself. Look how she clings to that ring when your father would have wanted you to have it. It's your inheritance, and she's denying it to you. And my poor Isabel, who was stressed with all the wedding preparations and missing her father, started believing her. I can't completely blame my daughter, because Judith is an expert at manipulating people. She's been doing it her whole life. After that first argument at the bakery, things got worse and worse. Isabel would come to my house with Judith, and the two of them would practically attack me, telling me I was cruel, that I was ruining the most important day of my daughter's life over a simple ring. I tried to explain to them over and over that it wasn't just a ring, that it was my connection to Peter, but they didn't want to listen. Judith even had the nerve to tell me that Peter would be ashamed of me if he saw me acting like this, and that's what broke me. I yelled at her. I told her that she had never really loved Peter, that she only saw him as a possession, and that she had no right to tell me what my husband would or wouldn't do. The situation reached a point where I had to make a difficult decision. I had been helping financially with the wedding. Basically, I was paying half of everything because Gabriel's family doesn't have many resources and I wanted my daughter to have the wedding of her dreams. But after weeks of constant attacks, aggressive messages, Isabel telling me I was a bad mother, I decided to withdraw my financial support. I told them, if this is how you're going to treat me, if you're going to allow Judith to talk to me like this and play along with her, then let her pay for the wedding. You can imagine the drama that caused. About 2 months went by without Isabel talking to me. They were the 2 hardest months of my life since Peter died. I would cry every night at the bakery after closing, looking at photos of Isabel when she was little, wondering how we had gotten to this point. My brother-in-law Charles, who is Judith's oldest son and Peter's brother, tried to mediate but without taking sides because, well, she's his mother and it was also his brother who died. He would call me from time to time to ask how I was doing, and I knew he was in an impossible position. Then one day, it was like 8 at night and I was closing the bakery. Isabel showed up. She came alone, without Judith, and she looked destroyed. Her eyes were red from crying. So much, and she basically collapsed as soon as she saw me. She told me that the venue where they were going to have the wedding was asking them for the full deposit or they would lose the reservation, that Gabriel and his family had pooled everything they could but it wasn't enough, and that she didn't know what to do. I stood there looking at her, this child I had carried in my arms, who I had taken care of when she was sick, who I had watched grow up, and my heart was breaking because I could see she was genuinely desperate. I told her to sit down and let's talk like adults. I asked her directly, "Do you really think I'm selfish for wanting to keep your father's ring?" She stayed quiet for a long moment and then admitted that Judith had been pressuring her a lot, telling her that I had never been a good wife, that I had probably contributed to the stress that caused Peter's heart attack, all kinds of horrible things. Isabel told me that at first she didn't believe her, but after hearing it over and over she started to doubt, started to see me as the villain of the story. I explained to her, with all the patience I could find within me, that this ring represented every moment I spent with her father. I told her about the day Peter gave it to me, how he trembled with nerves, how he promised to love me until death do us part, and he kept that promise until his last breath. I told her I understood that she also missed her father and wanted to feel him close at her wedding, but that there were other ways to honor him without taking away the only tangible thing I had left of him. "Why don't you wear his watch? Or his favorite tie? Or we put his photo at the ceremony? But this ring is mine, and I need you to respect that." Isabel started crying harder and apologized to me. She told me she had been a fool for letting Judith manipulate her, that she knew deep down that I had never been selfish with her, that I had always given everything for her, especially after Peter died. But then came the hard part. I told her I would help her with the wedding, that I would pay what was left of the deposit and continue supporting financially, but with one condition. She had to cut contact with Judith, at least for a while, until she could clearly see how toxic that relationship was. You can imagine that wasn't easy for Isabel. Judith is her grandmother after all, and despite everything she loves her. But Isabel understood she had to choose, and she chose me. She promised me she would block Judith from her phone, that she wouldn't invite her to any of the dress fittings or any wedding planning meetings. It was a bittersweet moment because I didn't want to force her to choose between us, but Judith had made any other arrangement impossible. The following weeks were better. Isabel and I started rebuilding our relationship. We would go together to see wedding venues, we picked the flowers, we tasted cakes at my bakery. I made all the desserts for the wedding as my special gift to her. It was almost like before Peter died, those moments when it was just her and me against the world. But I knew Judith wasn't going to stay quiet for long. And I was right. About a month after Isabel cut contact with her, Judith started calling Charles to convince me to change my mind. Charles called me one afternoon and told me, "Look, Rebecca, I know my mother can be difficult, but she's suffering a lot with this. She says you're keeping her away from her granddaughter." I explained the whole situation to him, how Judith had manipulated Isabel, the horrible things she had said to me, and Charles sighed and told me he understood, but didn't know what to do. I told him he didn't have to do anything, that this was a situation between Judith, Isabel, and me, and that I appreciated him trying to stay neutral. But Judith didn't give up easily. She started sending me messages. At first I had her blocked, but Charles asked me to unblock her so they could at least communicate about important family matters. It was a mistake. As soon as I unblocked her, the messages started. At first they were long and dramatic messages about how I was destroying the family, how Peter would be disappointed in me, how I was a terrible mother. I didn't respond to any of them. I just left them on read, because I knew that if I responded, I was going to say things I would regret. Then one night, it was like 10 o'clock. I was at home watching TV with Isabel and Gabriel, who had come to dinner, when my phone rang. It was Judith. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something told me to do it. As soon as I answered, she started yelling at me, calling me everything, telling me that I had poisoned her granddaughter against her, that I had never been enough for her son, that I had probably killed Peter with my attitude. I was in shock. I couldn't believe the things she was saying. Isabel could hear the screaming from where she was sitting and came running. I handed the phone to Isabel so she could hear what her grandmother was saying about me. Isabel's face as she listened got paler and paler. When Judith realized that Isabel was listening, she completely changed her tone, started talking sweet, saying things like, "My love, your mom is attacking me. You have to come help me. I'm alone and sad." But it was too late. Isabel had heard enough. She told Judith that she had heard every horrible word she had said, that she couldn't believe her own grandmother was capable of saying those things about her mother, and that she didn't want to talk to her for a long time. Then she hung up and hugged me. We both cried together like we hadn't in months. I thought that would be the end, that Judith would finally understand she had gone too far. But 6 months before the wedding, on a Sunday afternoon, we were all at my house. I had made a big dinner with Charles and his kids, Isabel and Gabriel. It was one of those nice days where you feel like the family is together and happy. And then there was a knock on the door. It was Judith. I don't know how she got my address because I had moved a year after Peter died. It was a smaller house near the bakery. Charles went pale when he saw her. Judith came in without anyone inviting her. I mean, literally pushed the door when Charles opened it and started her dramatic show. She was crying, saying she just wanted to see her granddaughter, that it was unfair that they were keeping her away, that she had rights as a grandmother. Isabel got up from the table and told her very clearly, "Grandma, I heard you say horrible things to my mom. You can't come here and act like you're the victim." But Judith wouldn't stop. She started yelling that I was the one who had put those ideas in Isabel's head, that I was a manipulator, that I had planned all this since Peter died to keep her away from her family. And the dinner became total chaos. Charles's kids were scared. Gabriel didn't know what to do, and I just wanted her to leave. It was Charles who finally got her out. He literally had to carry her because she clung to the door frame screaming. He took her to his car and drove her away. Then he came back, apologized like 1,000 times, said he had no idea she was going to do that she had told him she was going to the supermarket. We were all in shock. The dinner was ruined. The atmosphere was tense. But Isabel came to me and said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should never have doubted you. Now I see exactly what you're capable of, and I understand why you need that ring. It's your shield against all this." That night, after everyone left, Isabel and I stayed up late talking. She told me things that Judith had said to her over the years, little comments about how I didn't cook as well as her, how I didn't keep the house as clean, how Peter probably would have married someone better if he hadn't met me first. Things that Isabel had ignored when she was younger, but now clearly saw as attempts to undermine my date, a relationship with my daughter. I asked her why she had never told me anything, and she replied that she didn't want to cause me more pain after losing Dad. I cried so much that night, but they were tears of relief too, because finally my daughter could see the truth. The months leading up to the wedding were incredible. Isabel and I became as close as before, maybe even closer. Gabriel would tell me that Isabel talked all the time about how grateful she was to have me, how she wanted to be a mother like me someday. We finished all the wedding planning. I chose a dress for myself that Isabel loved. We did the cake tastings, and she picked her favorite. It was pure happiness. A week before the wedding, Isabel came to the bakery. I was decorating the sample cakes when she walked in with a little box in her hand. She told me, "Mom, I have to ask you something and I need you to know it's okay if you say no." My heart started beating fast because I thought maybe she was going to ask for the ring. Again. But no, she told me. "I know that ring is yours, and I know what it means to you. But I was wondering if maybe, just for the ceremony, you could lend it to me as my something borrowed. I'll have it on my finger only during the ceremony and I'll give it back to you immediately after. I wouldn't even wear it at the reception. That way Dad will be with me at that moment, but I understand that the ring is yours, and always will be yours." I'm not going to lie. My first instinct was to automatically say, no. But I looked at my daughter, this beautiful woman who was about to get married, and I saw how much she had matured in these months. I saw that she finally understood what the ring meant to me and that she wasn't asking me to give it to her, just to share it for a moment. I told her I would think about it. That night, I took out a box I had stored with Peter's things. There were photos, letters, he wrote to me, his favorite cologne that still smelled a bit like him. And I thought about what Peter would have wanted. He loved Isabel more than anything in the world. He would have given anything to see her get married. And I realized that maybe I could do this. I could lend her the ring for that hour. Because at the end of the day, love isn't measured in rings or material things but in the moments we share. The next day, I told Isabel, yes, that she could borrow the ring for the ceremony. She cried and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She made me promise that if at any moment I regretted it or felt uncomfortable, I just had to tell her, and she would give it back immediately. I told her I trusted her completely. The wedding day was perfect. Isabel looked beautiful in her white dress. She wore Peter's ring on her right hand because on the left she had her engagement ring. During the ceremony, I saw her touching the ring every so often, exactly like I do when I need to feel Peter close, and I knew I had made the right decision. When the ceremony ended, she came running to me and gave me back the ring before anyone else could congratulate her. I put it on my finger and felt like Peter was there with us, proud of his daughter and how we had handled everything. Judith wasn't invited to the wedding, obviously. Charles attended and was wonderful. He danced with me, told me that Peter would be proud of how I had protected Isabel from his mother's toxicity. After the wedding, we found out that Judith tried to show up at the venue, but security didn't let her in because Isabel had specifically put her name on a list of people not allowed. Part of me felt bad for a second, but then I remembered everything that had happened, and that feeling went away. Now Isabel and Gabriel are happily married. They live near my house and we see each other at least twice a week. Sometimes Isabel comes to help me at the bakery like she did when she was a teenager. We haven't spoken to Judith in over a year. Charles says she still complains about us, but he doesn't pay much attention anymore. The ring is still on my finger where it belongs, and it will probably stay there until the day I die. Sometimes I think about everything that happened, and I wonder if I could have handled things differently, if I was too harsh or too stubborn. But then I look at the relationship I have now with my daughter, stronger than ever, and I know it was worth defending my boundaries. The ring isn't just a piece of metal. It's a symbol of love, of commitment, of all the promises that Peter and I made and kept to each other. And no one, not even my own daughter, has the right to take that from me without truly understanding what it means. Last week, Isabel told me that when she has children, she wants to raise them just like I raised her, with unconditional love but also with clear boundaries and respect. She told me that what she learned most from all this is that you can love someone and still tell them no when they cross a line. And that's enough for me, I guess. That, and the ring that keeps shining on my finger every day, reminding me that true love never dies, it just changes form.